Good evening and welcome to the MSAD 60 March 2nd board meeting. We'd like to start by saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now our Vice Chair, Elva Lovejoy, is going to do the public input statement.
Public input session is a 21-minute session with each person having no longer than 3 minutes.
Can you speak up?
The first public input session is a 21-minute session with each person having no longer than 3 minutes in which to make a statement. But a second public input session may be held at the end of the meeting if allowed by the board chair. The speaker will give his or her name, address, and reason for speaking. Public input is designated for district residents, but the board chair may grant non-residents the opportunity to address the board. Statements concerning subject matter that falls under the law regarding executive sessions, for example, matters involving personnel, cannot be made during public input. We as a community pledge to treat each other as we wish to be treated. We pledge to seek understanding when there may be disagreement, regardless of outcomes or opinions. We pledge to move forward with respect.
Thank you, Elva. Now we're going to look at the minutes of February 16th.
Do we have any public input?
Oh, sorry. Do we have any public input? Okay, thank you. So now we will look at the minutes of February 16th. Does anybody have any corrections or adjustments?
How much of a fine tooth comb do you want?
I like fine food.
It says on February 2nd, I should say February 16th.
Thank you.
That second paragraph,
Got it.
expulsion of
Sorry.
student, there was an extra period, and then adding in periods at the in at 6:17, out at 6:47.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And in the student report, should rise be all capitalized?
Let me look.
Is that
Probably.
probably all capital? Okay.
All right, so we'll take care of it. Yes. Gotcha. Thank you.
I got more.
You got more?
I got more.
Okay, keep going.
The second page, what paragraph is it? Director of Teacher and Learning, that paragraph, towards the end of it, we ask the overall question. Should that be colon R
Yes,
The
it should be
comma.
colon.
and then a question?
No, it should be a semicolon.
Semicolon,
Gotcha.
and then a question mark at the end of
Yeah,
the question.
got it.
And in the superintendent's report in school nutrition, the space before the last sentence, food trip period. And
Did
she,
you have time today, Lauren?
I had moments.
No, I'm totally good. I'm sorry. I'm just teasing. Where is
Just space between state level period space.
gotcha.
Great job, by the way.
Thank you.
All right.
Anyone else have any additional comments?
Right.
Does somebody want to make a motion to accept the minutes?
I make a motion to accept the minutes
As grammatically amended.
as grammatically amended.
Got it.
I'll second.
Second. And all those in favor? And the motion passes. We have one abstention.
Two.
Yeah. Two meetings?
She's on. The TV's updating,
Oh, okay,
but Nancy's on.
okay.
And did she?
She
doesn't
doesn't stay.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. She can hear us. We just can't see her right when.
Okay, that's good for me.
Can you see us, Nancy?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so it's recording properly. Thank you.
Okay, so our next order of business is our student report. Echo.
On the Tuesday of break, which was February 21st, some members of the National and Spanish Honor Society came in and removed the tree in the courtyard. And we had pizza and we made plans on how to make it more accessible for classroom use. And some of those include like bringing tables out there and like maybe putting something in the office so that classes can sign up to use the area in coming years. And also the French department left for their Quebec trip.
Wonderful.
That is all.
Good weather for a Quebec trip.
I bet.
Thank you, Echo. And now we're at the meat of the meeting, I guess.
I guess.
Budget presentation.
Sure. I'm just gonna go talk up there just to
Good.
look at everything. So we have our administrators here for the budget workshop, and so they are at the back part of the library and over on the side here. So when we start the workshop portion, that's where they will be. All right, so for those of you that are new to the board, this is the budget binder. And in the binder, there are tabs for each cost center. So each cost center is represented, like a school is a cost center, facilities is a cost center. So all of our different departments are the cost center. When we talk about cost centers, that's what we're speaking about. This evening, I will be just doing a quick overview of the superintendent's budget. And then what we'll do is go into the workshops section of the meeting when you can ask individual cost centers any questions that you may have, and then we'll come back together. And then I'll talk about next steps as I read through just kind of an overview, the overview that I have written, and I want to make sure that I hit everything I want to say. So thank you for allowing me to present the budget this evening. This is the superintendent's budget. Before highlighting the bottom line numbers, I'd just like to talk a little bit about the process. There are a few different ways to build a budget of this magnitude. One way is to rely on previous fiscal years and just kind of do an estimate, best case, estimate, and move from that portion. The other way is to do what's called a zero-based budget. And what that entails is taking a deeper dive into every part of your district or your cost center and building a budget from there. So you're not making an assumption that because you have this amount of money in textbooks one year, you're going to have the same amount the next year, or you're going to just think about inflation and bumping it up. It's really taking a moment to analyze where you are and getting appropriate quotes and then building your own budget or the budget from there. So the example, similar to what I just said, like at the textbook line, you're going to see textbooks comes up for buildings, school buildings, and almost all of our cost centers. And you may see 1 year 5,000 if the textbooks were purchased and they don't need anything. The next year it may be at 0, then it may be at 10,000. So it really fluctuates based on the need of the building or the department or grade levels or subject areas. So that is how we really try to look at our budget. We typically start very much in early fall, and we identify goals or priorities for the budget cycle. So similar to the last few years, for the fiscal 24 year, we focused on retaining and hiring high quality and skilled staff, social emotional learning and supports for our students, increasing literacy skills for all students, kindergarten through 12th grade, facilities, space, and school safety. So from there, from our identification of priorities, our cost centers began to develop the budgets, taking into consideration the previously identified priorities. As another example, the detail pages of each school building cost center budgets addresses those priorities or goals through professional development, guidance supplies, instructional supplies, wages, and textbooks. So when you open to a cost center, for example, let's just look, the first one that comes in is tab 12, which is Anson School and Lebanon Elementary. If you look at their detail, the detail pages, which is typically page 3 and 4 or 4 and 5, depending on how large the cost center is, you'll really be able to see those details broken out. So over the last few months, our cost center and central office met to review the budgetary requests, honing in on the priorities while also addressing facilities, and capital improvement projects, school nutrition, technology, transportation, and health. So as a result of the ongoing cost center meetings, the full budget was compiled and presented to the Facilities and Finance Committee yesterday and this morning. So we just ended that work this morning. The fiscal year 24 budget represents an operating budget of $45,715,266, which is an increase in expenditures of 0.65% or $296,128. As everyone knows, the cost of goods and services has increased significantly, so this is remarkable. This figure includes costs of daily operations, utilities, fuel, supply, textbooks, furniture, wages, salaries, and benefits. Some years have a higher number of new positions reflected in the district budget. That again is based on needs such as class size, behavioral and instructional supports. This year, new position requests have been kept to a minimum while not compromising what is best for our student population. I'm just going to highlight a few right now. Across the district, there are 8 new positions requested for fiscal year 24. 3 permanent substitute positions have been requested to help with the severe shortage in daily substitutes. The funds for that were offset by the substitute in the district budget. We're asking for a part-time, half-time assistant principal at the Knowlton School to increase of students and staff when North Berwick grade 5 students transition to the building. The remainder of the new positions fall under local entitlement and are not reflected in the regular budget. 1 educational technician, 1 speech therapist, 1.5 resource teachers, and 1 clerical position to assist with paperwork, scheduling meetings, and keeping everything on track. The major factor driving this budget is a loss of state subsidy. While the student population is almost at 3,000 strong, enrollment is down from last year. This is largely attributed to a larger number of graduates in 2022 than currently enrolled in this present kindergarten class. Additionally, state valuation for all 3 towns is up significantly. Due to the decrease in enrollment, an increase in town valuation, and an increase in the mill rate, the district state subsidy is $1.5 million less than when compared to the fiscal year 23, which is approximately a 7% decrease in the funding compared to last year. Moving to the estimated revenue for fiscal year 24, you will see overall revenue down $1,860,973. This is where the state subsidy loss is reflected due to previously mentioned factors. Fiscal 24 will use less fund balance than fiscal year 23 to cover costs. Mary Hurd Academy, student tuition will increase to reflect anticipated out-of-district students in the program. And our bank interest also shows an increase of $75,000 due to the higher interest rates. As you recall, 2 priorities for this budget cycle focus on social emotional learning and supports and continued work on increasing literacy skills for all students in kindergarten to grade 12. We continue to use federal COVID-related grants to further address educational recovery, learning loss for math and literacy, multi-tiered systems of supports, or RTI, and the Noble Flex. All of these areas focus address the budget cycle priorities. The overall increase to taxpayers for the school budget is 10.11%. In an effort to reduce the total amount paid by the towns for fiscal year 24, we have decided to eliminate the contribution towards school nutrition of $140,000. In addition, we are able to reduce the amount paid toward adult education by $100,000. These reductions bring the overall increase to the towns to 8.85%. That wraps up the overview, the budget overview. I realize it covered a lot of information and the budget does itself. For the next 20 minutes or so, we will move from the regular meeting to the budget workshop session where you will have an opportunity to meet with cost centers to ask specific questions related to their budgets. Next Thursday, March 9th, is scheduled as a budget workshop, so that's the only agenda item we'll have. And at that time, we'll dedicate time for the board discussion as we move through the document. But before we start breaking up into the workshops, are there any just broad questions from the board about the document itself or the process? Lynn?
Don't we usually get presentations from each cost center before we move on to the dividing up and asking questions stuff?
That was the role of the Facilities and Finance Committee.
So we've been doing that for several years where the facilities and finance folks see everybody individually. And then, so Ella was able to attend and Stephanie was able to attend and get more. And then we can, but everybody's here for you to ask any questions of.
Well, it'll take me 20 minutes to read through every cost center before I can do that.
Okay, and I will, but again, we have a workshop next week as well. So there's plenty, I think plenty of time for, this is not a one-shot deal for sure.
In addition to the 140 that was pulled out of the nutrition programs, what was the 100,000?
Adult education.
Adult ed, okay, thank you.
We write in our books.
You got it, those are your bar.
Make sure.
So Brenda Cravens is not here from transportation and Abby Hubble is not here from school nutrition. But what we're going to do is Sue is going to have one on her computer, one Brenda or Abby on her computer. I'm going to have the other on mine. So if you have a question for either of those departments, you can just come to our computer and you can talk directly to that cost center, that director. Okay. Any further questions?
Okay.
So because this is a workshop and this is just the initial kind of blush of the budget, we're going to shut off the regular meeting right now just because we're walking around, it's the workshop. And then we'll come back in 20 minutes and continue on with the regular portion of the meeting. Nancy, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. I think everybody's back. So we'll continue with the meeting. I know this portion took a little longer, but I think there were some good questions. Just as this first blush with the administrators and cost centers. So next week we will have the budget workshop to talk through some specific areas of the budget and then talk through any questions at any point in time. And this is a process that's gonna continue to evolve over the next couple of weeks as we work through this budget for you. So,
Thank you.
sure, thank you.
So our next order of business is an employment update.
And for this first one, it is the nomination of continuing contract administrators, which we typically don't read that list. You received that list. So we just need a motion to accept those administrators that are on the continuing contract.
I make a motion to accept the administrators' continuing contracts.
Second. All those in favor? And the motion's passed.
And we have two resignations from on leave of absence, at leave of absence last year. The first one is Laura Winslow, who is Noble Middle School math teacher, and she's not going to be returning, so she tenured in her resignation. So we need a motion and a second for that.
I make a motion to accept Laura Winslow's resignation.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Thank you.
And the motion is passed.
And then we have Melissa Weber, Noble Middle School math teacher. Same thing, not returning from the leave of absence.
I make a motion and we accept Melissa Weber's resignation.
All those in favor?
I'll take my staff.
So baby, but they're babies. Good thing for them.
And then we have one other one, staff member that had a leave of absence who is not returning as well. But because this person does not follow the teacher's contract, we don't need a motion to accept. We're just informing you of this shift. So Brooke Dunphy, who is the school psychological examiner, she was working in Berwick. She also had a leave of absence for the same reason. that the other two did, and she's not returning. So just that. And along those lines, we have a new hire. And again, this is outside of the teacher's contract, but I know that you're interested in hearing about our new positions. So Samantha LaFave is coming into Huzzy School as a board certified behavioral analyst to help working with the teachers and the staff that are supporting our students in our self-contained programs. So that will be starting in a few weeks. She had to give resignation to her current position, so she'll be coming on in a couple weeks. That's it for our employment.
Thank you. So are there other items that we'd like to discuss among the board?
I have a question. Okay, last meeting, I wasn't here, so I had a couple questions about the books that they're putting in the libraries. Something for all, I can't remember the actual group's name. Hold on a second. There was a group of teachers who met with you guys last time. I wasn't here, that's why I said it's
Oh, we discussed the Noble for All.
Noble for All. Thank
That's
you.
it, yeah, the committee.
No,
Yeah,
for some reason.
Yeah.
They mentioned that there were some books being placed in the classroom libraries as well as the libraries. And I'm just wondering, can we get a list of those to find out what they're replacing and what they're putting in?
We can, I think actually what that was what the school librarians were doing was reviewing the books in the libraries and then in classrooms, just to be sure that everything was looked at from that just that the quality lens more than anything. I don't think they were actually talking about particular books that were placed or not placed. Because I remember this one, I want to make sure I'm
Yes,
saying that
I don't think
accurate.
they were-
I want to make sure I'm accurate, yeah.
Right.
So there wasn't like a list of books that they were presenting in, it was just a review of all of the books, like Sharon did a whole
Thank
piece on the
Could
library.
we maybe get have them come in and talk to us about that a little bit, what they're looking at, what they're seeing, and if there is something that we need to get into. So I'm just curious what their perspective on that was and what.
We can also set up a separate, like, we can actually have a conversation if you want, like, we can get the Sharon to come in and just chat with you about, like, the board with that, about what we're doing about.
Because they're doing it at all schools, right?
Right, well,
With all libraries, we
Right.
we continuously review books
Right.
and cull old, our outdated books.
Okay,
But we can have,
just want to go over that.
absolutely.
and so when I say Sharon, she actually is the chief of the librarian, so she'll have like.
Right, she'll
an
have
oversight.
everybody.
Yeah, yeah, then she,
Okay.
so like you'll have that one-stop shop, which is nice, like to be able to have that conversation.
Right.
Yeah,
We
for
can
sure.
stop in the libraries and look around too sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And that won't likely be next week, because next week we're just doing the budget workshop.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I just want
Okay.
to follow
Yeah,
up.
We'll put it on,
absolutely.
we'll put it
Yeah.
on the.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other? Okay, so let's move on. Does anybody in the audience have public input at this point? See, we have a couple of new guests. Thank you for joining us tonight. I hope you found the meeting informative.
All right. I'll make,
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second? All those in favor?
Thank you for everybody.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you.